Hello and welcome to Lunchtime Live. Today I am joined by Dr. Seb Lomas, and I am so super excited for him to be here with us, as I know many of you are too. So welcome, Seb. Thank you so much for giving up your lunch break, I think, to be with us today. Really grateful to have you here, and I know there is so many people that want to know more about how we can naturally support our oral health. So I know this is going to be a highly watched live. So if you just want to sort of take it away and introduce yourselves a little bit. I don't think people may necessarily know what a biological dentist is. So over to you.
Well, thanks for having me, Danny. And I'd be doing one thing or another on a lunch break anyway. So it's like this makes a bit more fun than doing treatment plans and looking at what can be done. So I'm quite excited myself. And yeah, so I am studied the conventional dental route, but then really had huge amounts of passion and drive to do things as natural as possible, basically as minimally invasive as possible, and to work with the body's materials and the uniqueness of each individual person and their chemistry and how that can affect their overall well-being. Really, that's the way that I look at it. Is dentistry that focuses on biohacking and well-being and getting the most out of the life, so you can have a long health span, which is the main thing for me. Is what I'm here to do: live a exciting and healthy life rather than a long lifespan, but not be able to do and have a good quality of life, right? And I think that's the main difference between them. We're not just focused on fixing the function of one tooth to chew. It's how the whole thing, including the airway, plays into our overall well-being.
Amazing. Yeah. So obviously I only met you very briefly a couple of weeks ago, and I was mesmerized by the things you were talking about, and went and checked out your Instagram and was learning lots. I feel like I've taken on a lot of new information, and I think, why don't all dentists do this? It seems so surreal from what my experience has been practically my whole life, and just how much our oral health affects our overall health. So I'd love to hear just a little bit more about that, if you can share some of that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's true, isn't it? Like, why isn't it the standard way of doing dentistry? And I guess I always like to say that dental is a medical profession, unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it. And things have to be proven time and time and time again in the scientific community to come in the mainstream and to be practiced. So that's why it's not really available, because a lot of the things that I'm doing are cutting edge, new, different, not much research behind them. And I think we heard on the day when I was with you in London that, you can't use science to measure an essential oil, because there's different percentages, let's say, frankincense, because it's got hundreds of compounds in it. You can't use science to replicate that, because it's not the same dose at the same percentage every single time, because you get a different consistency. Whatever's in nature, you get the same amount, but all of the bits in the middle change. And that's kind of this type of dentistry that I like to use as well. Cutting edge, always changing, always developing, always new. And my patients understand that. And I guess the main thing for me is the foundations are materials that live in the mouth and what they are, including your toothpaste, for example, including how you're breathing and how that can affect the saliva or the mineral content within your saliva and your immune cells that within your mouth. But then also we've got infections that could be hidden within the gums, could be hidden within the jawbones, could be around old root canals, things that could be just adding not a toxic load to your system, but just draining your immune system that's constantly going kind of day in, day out, and has to deal with something like that. And if you're adding more fuel to the fire by, getting a cold or coming into contact with illnesses, your body's fighting that off, then these things manifest more easily because your body's already at the threshold point. And that's why we use oils, right? To try and use natural things that don't really put a burden on our system, that our body can deal with more when it needs to. Because most of the things that we use outside of the oils kind of labeled as a toxin in a way to our system. Even like vitamins and minerals, if you're not natural ones, can be half of it a synthetic vitamin, half of it can be labeled as a bit of a compound that's not recognized in the body. And then your body's like, well, what do I do with this? So, stripping these things out as much as possible and coming to the most basic thing, which is as close to nature and what we evolved on and what we grew into and our ancestors did, keeps things simple, lowers inflammation, allows our body to function optimally, And that's the way that I treat dentistry. So it's the materials, it's the airway and the breathing, which is mainly around sleeping at night and how we can get a fully true, deep, restful sleep by changing things in our mouth, which is our teeth position and our tongue strength and our tongue position and our swallowing habits and all these crazy things that we never really think about.
That's some of the stuff that I found really, really fascinating when I was watching your talk, was about how that has so much impact, and we literally never even hear about it. I'd never heard this stuff before, which is what led me to go and find out a little bit more, actually. And I was watching lots on, like I said, on your Instagram about all these different positionings and things. And we've got some Q&As that we'll try and get through at the end, where people have asked some certain questions about teeth positioning and things like that. So could you kind of give us a little bit of a rundown on some of your top tips for how we can naturally support our oral health?
Absolutely. I mean, again, going as natural as possible. So, I mean, the easiest one for everyone to integrate, every time you eat or drink anything that's got anything other than water, rinse your mouth out with water and try and neutralize what's going on within the mouth. Because anytime we eat something, whether it's acidic or not, the bugs in our mouth start to break those things down and they turn them into acid. And then that can lead to erosion on the teeth or weaker teeth in that period of time until your body remineralizes it. And the remineralization process of the body requires your saliva to have minerals in it, requires you not to be mouth breathing so the saliva can get onto the teeth to mineralize it, and you not to be putting pressure on your teeth, which is cracking and breaking them. So there's quite a few little things that go on there. So the simple thing is just get back to 0 pH or neutral pH in the middle by rinsing your mouth out every time you eat or drink something. And I remember when I first started doing this, everyone was around was like, "What are you doing? You just eaten." I was like, "Well, I'm doing it from my basis of my head." So people don't love it because you've got to do it gently. Otherwise, like, why are you rinsing? It's really weird. But that's do, and the benefits of that are huge. You can take it one step further by adding some salt into it to rinse it around with as well, and that's super simple. And we're lucky enough to have
The On God mouthwash, of course.
yeah. So I mean, that's not always on you at the time, but if you've even got On Guard in your mouth, you can rinse around with that little bit of water in there as well. That's not going to do you any harm. And then in terms of the oral hygiene habits, you want to be gentle with the gums because we don't really want to cause bleeding. And there's an exception to that because if we've got irritated, inflamed gums anyway, they're going to bleed, and you've got to brush them and clean in between them until they stop bleeding. But if you know that you've got healthy gums, you don't want to be scrubbing your teeth to cause bleeding or anything like that. We support that attachment that goes to the tooth and makes it strong by gently brushing the gum line, not over brushing the gum line. And you can do that by just tooth gum, angle the toothbrush just in between the tooth and the gum very gently. And you do that morning and night. Most important time to brush your teeth is right before bed. So anyone that skips that one, please don't. That's like the most important time because you've eaten food all day, you've got bacteria living in between your teeth, and you need to get it off. So definitely brushing morning and the night is awesome. I coconut oil pull once a day, and I recommend everyone coconut oil pull. And I do it when I'm fitting it in between tasks. So I do it while I'm making my smoothies for the day or preparing for the week on a Sunday. You know, whatever it is, just easy to do, and spit it into the bin, and that coats your teeth with this nice layer of oil that is kind of like protective of the teeth, but also it stops. It's a bit like essential oils, right? It's got these, and you can maximize it by adding a drop of On Guard or adding a drop of peppermint orange to help whiten the teeth. But the actual coconut oil has anti-everything properties, very low ones, that creates like a good environment for the good bacteria to live, but a bad environment for the bad bacteria to live. And then it coats it with like an oily layer where plaque and calcareous can't stick to it. So if you've gone to your hygienist and had all those bits cleaned off, if you coconut oil pull, you shouldn't actually get them back stuck onto your teeth, which is amazing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually shared a post in the group a little while ago about oil pulling. But for those that don't know, can you just quickly whip through what oil pulling actually is and how we do it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's simply getting a teaspoon of coconut oil and popping it in your mouth. And yes, it's the hard white stuff. And when you put it in your mouth, it actually melts because your body temperature is warm enough to melt it. And then you just push it around. And it's actually really good for your tongue strength and positioning as well, because you use your tongue to push it into all of the places and suck it into the teeth. So you're pushing and sucking. So you're actually cleaning in between your teeth with it, and you're balancing the bacteria, and you're coating the teeth with it everywhere as well, which is fantastic. I recommend that every single day. Some days, don't get me wrong, if I'm on holiday, I won't be doing it. But, you know, when I remember, I'll be doing it. And
shoveling in coconut oil.
I think I'm weird, but that's okay.
So how long would you do that for, that whole rinsing with the coconut oil?
Any minutes is better than no minutes, but 20 minutes is the optimum. So 20 minutes is the optimum. And I do mine with my exercise, so I can be focusing on my nasal breathing, because of course if you're swishing you can't breathe through your mouth, so then that helps everything as well. It switches more into that nasal breathing aspect. With the toothpaste, we're lucky because we've got the doTERRA On Guard toothpaste, which is pretty excellent. It's got the hydroxyapatite within it. There's only one ingredient I'm not overly in love with in the doTERRA toothpaste, which is glycerin, which might limit the remineralizing effects, but I'd still use it, and that's still my staple toothpaste. And you can even get something like tooth mousse, where you can pop it on your teeth afterwards to help with remineralization as well. But yeah, you want to use a toothpaste that's free of toxins, fluoride, SLS, triclosan, glycerin if possible, and all of those things. Glycerin's not really a toxin; it just doesn't stop it stops the remineralizing, or limits it, doesn't stop it. So you want to be as natural as possible, but when you are going as natural as possible, you need to ensure that you've got calcium hydroxyapatite in it, or hydroxyapatite, which is the thing that helps strengthen the teeth, and it's a substitute for fluoride itself.
Oh, okay, because that was going to be one of my next questions, because I know there's been some talk about I'm sure I can't say it right, the hydroxy thing. So just obviously just what that is and what it does, and why that's so important, because I know there's lots of talk. One of the questions was going to be about fluoride and avoiding that, and what we need to use instead to ensure that we're taking the best care of our teeth.
So I mean, actually the last thing that I would say 100% before you go to bed is cleaning in between your teeth. And that can be either with like a little easy pick, which is a silicone thing that's not going to irritate your gums, or you can use like the water jet that just cleans in between it as well. They're the best ones to not irritate the gums with, but definitely cleaning in between your teeth is important, because that's the place where food packs, and decay starting in between there is not nice to drill to, because you have to drill through healthy tooth to get to it. So yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare area. But yeah, hydroxy. So the structure of a tooth. In fact, I'm probably going to do a post on this, because you've got the pulp, which is living in the middle of the tooth. So each of the teeth is permanently alive. Think of it as a conch shell, or something that's got something within it, and within that you've got your nerve and your blood supply, your neurovascular bundle, and then around that, what I can do is got an X-ray up, so I'll try and show you. So can you see this?
Yep.
This is your enamel layer. This tooth is an impacted one. It's normally up like that, but I'm just showing you because it's within the jawbone, easy to see. And then you've got your dentine layer underneath that, and then this black bit in the middle, that's your nerve and your blood supply. So this layer, this dentine, which is the majority of the tooth, it's about 70% of the tooth, is also living. So when people talk about remineralizing the tooth, you can remineralize this middle layer. This enamel layer on the top is calcium hydroxyapatite. And when we use fluoride, it creates a layer called fluorocalcium hydroxyapatite, which is stronger, but obviously fluoride is an irritant to our system. So that's why people don't like it, and it's a toxin. But in terms of strengthening the teeth, it does do that. There's no argument for that. But in terms of overall health and well-being, there's a big argument for that. So if you're not going to use fluoride, use hydroxyapatite, which is a substitute, and it helps rebond on those hard enamel parts on your teeth. And the enamel layer cannot be grown back, because the cells that produce the enamel, enamoblasts, once your teeth erupt when you're younger, they actually wash off with the saliva, because they're on the top of the teeth. So you can slow down and stop decay within the enamel and remineralize it in terms of hardening it, but you can't grow it back, if that makes sense, because there's a quite common misconception that's around that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't know that, and looking at that X-ray was really good because we don't know what we're looking at, do we? When the dentist is
No.
looking at our X-rays as to what each bit actually is. So that's really useful information. So one of the things that was a question that was asked in the group was what you actually recommend to use. So obviously you've talked about the On Guard toothpaste, so and obviously the coconut oil pudding. So what are kind of your top products to be using for taking care of our teeth and our gums?
So a toothbrush that's either so this one is called a Curaprox, and it's like a microfiber cloth but a toothbrush. So it's got 1,800, oh no, sorry, wait a minute, 7,600 bristles.
Wow, that is a
But
lot.
they're so tiny, and when you brush your teeth with it, it does not feel like you're even brushing your teeth, but after you've brushed with it, your teeth feel squeaky clean. So if you're going to use a manual toothbrush, that's the one to use. If you're going to use an electric toothbrush, my favorite is the Sonicare Philips, because it's got the ultrasonic movement on it, and you can brush your teeth gently with it.
Mhm.
In terms of the interdental cleaning between each of the teeth, I prefer the Easy Picks. They're from TP Easy Picks, and they've got little silicone bits on them. And if you poked it, it would bend. So it just fits in between the teeth. So it's not going to cause irritation or bleeding by poking like the metal brushes can.
Mhm.
And then a natural toothpaste, which we've covered with On Guard, coconut oil pulling. And if you're not using the Easy Picks, you can use the Water Pick, which is the water jet that you fire between the gum line and each of the teeth, which is also very good. I tend to mix mine up between the Easy Picks and the Water Pick. I do like maybe 4 nights of one, 3 nights the other in a week.
Wow, amazing. So combining all these together is going to be really great for our teeth, isn't it? With the oil pulling and using the right type of brush and the right type of products.
Absolutely.
So I've got a few Q&As if we can whiz through some, because I know there's people that are desperate to get their questions answered, if that's okay.
Of course it is. Yeah. Well, I
So
think on my wife's website, Wonder Wellness, I think I've put, from memory, I can't remember, I think I've put like an oral healthcare routine on there. So you're welcome to share that with the group.
awesome. I will absolutely, after this, I will be sharing how people can connect with you and your Instagram, because I've learned lots from there already. So I will definitely be sending people your way. One of the things that has been asked by several different people is what we can do about receding gums.
Yeah, get to the root cause. Got to find out why it's receding first. And, that's the fundamental of the dentistry that I'm doing, which is, root cause dentistry, eliminating what's causing these things to change. But in my experience, receding gums can be pressure on teeth, because teeth are held into the bone via little ligaments. And if you put, say you had a tooth, so this is how a tooth should bite together, right? Like that. If you had a tooth that was leaning inwards and the bite was going like that and pushing it like that each time, you would start to see the gums recede because it's pushing it into the gum. And that then pushes the tooth root through the bone a little bit and it starts receding. The technical word is dehiscence. And now that can happen on these little teeth that are in crooked areas and putting pressure on ways it's pushing it the wrong way. But it can also happen from grinding teeth, because if you're grinding your teeth and your teeth lock in a little bit, teeth can either chip and break and go flat to help with the grinding that's going on, or the gums can recede. So what we need to do is work out what's going on first. There is another overbrushing thing. If you brush too hard, like I said, and cause gums to bleed, anything like that, then that can actually recede the gums a little bit as well. But in my experience, more often than not, it's been, there's one more actually, which is if a dentist has done a crown or a bridge or something that's too close or too far below the gum line, then that can actually irritate the gums, and then the gums recede themselves because they need to establish a safe distance between the material and your bone again, and that's a biological thing that happens. But so there's pressure on the teeth or teeth in the incorrect position. There is overbrushing, and then there's advanced dentistry that's not quite in the right place. They're the main things that cause gum recession in my experience. And then we've got how do we stop it then? get a new filling or a crown or bridge if that's what's causing it. But normally, more often than not, if the gum's already receded around that part, and now you can just leave it, it's going to be there. So the crown bridge is fine. If the gum's done its recession and there's no more inflammation within the gum, then you don't need to touch it. It should stop.
Mm-hmm.
If the the teeth are in the wrong position, need to work out how we can get them to be more balanced, and that's evening out the bite to make it more even contacts everywhere. And then if the grinding or clenching or moving the teeth across each other is causing chipping and breaking and recession in gums, we need to work out where the right position of the jaw should be for the airway health, because normally what we do is we clench and grind our teeth at night to open our airway, which is a crazy thing, right? But that if we use lower bite guards, not upper bite guards, which stops our teeth from biting as close together and opens up the airway a little bit, then that will help as well. But more often than not, even if you just put a little lower bite guard in, a thin one, never get a thick and never get a soft one, get a hard, small one over the lower teeth, it will at least allow the teeth to grind over each other, because there's a bit of plastic that's easy to move around on. Mm-hmm. So they're the things that you can do to stop it. Can you grow gum back? No, not without surgery. So yeah, and it's not really a nice surgery, just to get a bit cut. It depends on the smile line, doesn't it, and where you want to go with it all.
Of course.
No, you go. Yeah. Sorry.
That's because somebody else asked that actually about if our teeth are not quite straight and we want to be kind of making that happen, what is the best way for us to do that? And obviously you've just mentioned that that can be a cause now of the receding gums. So they mentioned whether the metal one's better or something like Invisalign. You know, that's becoming a more popular practice. It's something my own dentist has recommended for me as well. So if you can share a little bit about what the right way to do that might be.
Oh gosh, yeah, this is a bit of a thing in itself. Invisalign is great. So if you just want cosmetic, Invisalign is fine. You just change the position of the teeth. But what you need to know about Invisalign is if you are clenching, grinding beforehand and the position of the teeth aren't perfect, and the teeth position more often than not are within a balanced neutral zone, and they stay there. If they're not within a balanced neutral zone, they move into a place that's more balanced for all the habits that you have. And when I say habits, I mean swallowing, tongue to the roof of the mouth, being up and out, breathing through the nose, not mouth breathing, so the tongue can actually be in the roof of the mouth to hold the teeth in the position where they should be. And then chewing in a way that's even. And now, Invisalign won't correct any of that, but it will move your teeth into a place that, if they're in the place that's balanced and they've not moved for a while, then it moves them into an unbalanced place. So maybe over time, very slowly, if you don't wear your retainers after the Invisalign, the teeth will start to go back into the place that they were more comfortable in, if you don't change the habits. So if you get...
Because it's not fixed what caused that in the first place.
Absolutely. So if you get any orthodontic work at all, you need to see a myofunctional therapist or someone that can teach you to breathe, swallow, and be at rest without clenching, grinding your teeth. So that's like the most important thing. And then Invisalign, for me, you've got to watch out on a few cases. It always asks for expansion of the jaw. And if expansion of the jaw doesn't happen, or they can't be done, they normally have to strip in between the teeth, and that's called interproximal reduction. So what that means then is that if your imbalanced place is out of balance and you strip the teeth and move the teeth into a more straight place, but you imagine the arch is a bit more narrow because you've stripped it a little bit, then your tongue, your airway is getting more narrow. So then it can make things more worse for you in the future. So I always say that if that's the case, yeah, don't get me wrong, I use clear aligners, and but I do it alongside training the habits at the same time. And I only do it in people that don't already clench or grind or have jaw joint problems, because the chances are it's a higher risk of causing upper airway resistance syndrome and incorrect tongue posture, because there's not enough room in the cage of the teeth anymore for the tongue if you're making the arch more narrow. So I love it, but you've got to know the full informed consent, right?
There's more to it than just making them look nice and straight, right?
Absolutely. Teeth looking nice and straight actually is helpful in other ways, right? It's easier to clean, it's less decay, it's easier on the gums, all of those as well. But you don't want to be, and I'm about airway focused, sleep focused dentistry. So if it's going to impact the way that you sleep and breathe and your airway is going to be more narrow, you're going to have to clench and grind your teeth more, which I see all of the time, then it's not a good ideal thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally get that. So it needs a more holistic approach and looking at all different sides of things.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So we also had a question about, I don't think I'm going to say this right, periodontitis?
Periodontitis, yes.
That. I wrote it down, but I had no idea how to pronounce it. So somebody asked about what we can do about that, if anything, naturally.
So it's gum disease, advanced gum disease, and now it depends where it is, what the situation is. But interestingly, the periodontitis. Imagine when I talked about the gums receding because of the pressure that goes on teeth. Periodontitis. So in an individual, either the teeth chip and break, or the gums get loose and recede and cause gum disease if you clench and grind your teeth. Sometimes the gum disease can just be caused by bad bugs. So rebalancing the oral microbiome is a really good thing because you've got a whole load of bacteria that live in our mouth. And the easiest way to do that is change your fillings from metal mercury ones to white BPA-free composite ones, and go to a good hygienist that cares about the microbiome and will give you oral probiotics and clean below the gums in a safe way. We use ozone water and we use infrared red light lasers to help reattach the gums to the bone again as much as we can. And then in terms of the pressure that goes on teeth, at the same time, if someone's got advanced gum disease and they're losing bone attachment to the teeth, I will always get them a bite guard to wear all the time, including nighttime, so they can be aware when they're clenching or grinding their teeth because there's a bit of plastic in their mouth, and then they have to reset the cycle to say, right, if I catch myself clenching, I put my tongue to the roof of my mouth, breathe through my nose, lips together. And you've got to just take yourself out of that pressure, because our teeth have little shock absorbers built into them in terms of the ligaments. So sometimes we don't even realize we're clenching. And because we do it so often, our brain's like, that's normal. Seb does that all the time. So don't tell him to stop. So you need to take yourself out of that cycle and get back to it, to not having the pressure on the teeth. So yeah, I think the best way is good, whole, nutritious food, oil pulling for sure, a hygienist that's going to be gentle with the gum line, balance the microbiome. You can get oral probiotics pretty easily nowadays as well to introduce some good bacteria to outweigh the bad bacteria and fight them, and taking pressure off the teeth, as well as cleaning below the gums from the hygienist as well.
So just a couple of things then.
Just, yeah.
That's a pretty decent list, isn't it?
It might only be one of those things that you can switch it, but I say, why risk it? Go for it all.
Absolutely, why not? It's not going to do any harm to do everything that's possible, isn't it? So
that's just me treating it from the mouth. The gums are a reflection of the body and the gut a lot of the time as well. So if you do cleansing, restoring the gut, and you do rebalancing, trying to find out foods that you're intolerant to that could cause inflammation, then it's like a reflection of the same thing. So don't rule that out as well.
Of course. That's great. So somebody else asked about children, about cleaning their teeth, because dentists quite often are recommending fluoride for children. So what would your recommendation be for helping children keeping their teeth clean?
Yeah, so supervise them brushing, obviously, which is a good thing, and doing it, going to the hygienist rather than the dentist, just to make sure, and they're the ones that teach brushing, cleaning, all of that kind of stuff to the kids, and get them on side. Hygiene, look at them as the maintainers and look at the dentist as the restorers. That's the way of looking at it. And they're just then in a good place. In terms of brushing, cleaning, really from a young age, you just want to be brushing, cleaning twice a day. And if you want to see if they'll tolerate oil pulling and all those fancy things, you can do. Using the doTERRA mouthwash maybe once a day at a separate time to brushing, cleaning would be good to balance the microbiome. But then looking at things like, are they putting pressure on their teeth? Are they mouth breathing and drying out the saliva and not allowing the bugs to be washed away, or remineralization of the teeth? And if they are, then you need to kind of cover those things off rather than just putting fluoride on the teeth, because that would be another root cause thing. Fluoride, they do it as standard now. Every kid gets fluoride at least twice a year, no matter what age. And you just think, do they need it realistically? If there's a whole mouth of decay and you're risking losing teeth, then I'd say, well, maybe use it. But milk teeth are milk teeth, and actually they're going to be superseded by the adult teeth anyway. So yeah, I wouldn't overly worried about that. And it's what we want to be doing with the baby teeth is keeping them in place so that the adult teeth have the space to come through. Because if they're not in place and the baby teeth are taken out, then crowding happens and the big first molar teeth that come through at 6 years old drift forward, and that's why everything gets crowded and you need braces. So I very rarely remove a baby tooth, in fact, ever.
I had loads out when I was a child, and that might explain a lot.
Exactly, because then it all drifts forward and it all shifts around, and then actually we're in a worse place. So, and then we're consequently in that time where it says, well, you might actually need to have teeth out to have straight teeth. And we think, no, that's the worst thing that we can have.
Of course. I'm really conscious of time because I know you don't have long left with us. So I know there's a few other questions, but we're just not going to get the chance to do those. So I would just like to ask really quickly, what are your favorite essential oils to use for oral health care?
So I coconut oil pull with thyme one day, then oregano another day, and I just put them 1 drop in my coconut oil as I'm swishing it around. But On Guard's fantastic. Lemon is fantastic for detoxing in general and just keeping the body flowing and the water and the saliva flowing, right? That's the most important thing. And then frankincense under the tongue before bed. That's my number.
Yes, this is one that you talked about in London. So I've got my bottle next to the bed now.
Yeah, it's so good. How have you found your sleep since?
When I remember to do it, much better.
Yes.
For those people, obviously, there's probably lots of people in the group that weren't able to see what you were talking about. What's the purpose of the frankincense under the tongue? Just really quickly.
Yeah,
please.
so frankincense under the tongue, it puts your body more into a parasympathetic nervous system state, which is the rest and digest. And that can actually raise the threshold of your fight or flight enough so that you don't clench or grind your teeth at night. So, and consequently, if you don't do that, you're not in fight or flight, so you're getting deeper sleep cycles. Mm-hmm. And that might be enough for some people to actually be in a more calm state. So I actually use copaiba and frankincense under my tongue before I sleep at night. And then the other ones obviously would be past tense or deep blue if you've got sore muscles or head muscles or headaches from clenching, grinding your teeth at night. Mm-hmm. So they're like my main oils and obviously the On Guard mouthwash products, you know.
Of course. I mean, we can't go wrong with the On Guard toothpaste and mouthwash. I just love everything about them. And it is a completely different sense of clean when I use those to all the things that I tried before. It's really hard to describe. So if anybody's not used them, definitely recommend that. Just a little caveat though, please make sure you're not putting oils other than doTERRA under your tongue. Because they are probably not pure. So we just want to make sure you don't just go and grab one that you've got there that might do you some harm. So thank you so much for being with us, Seb. I don't want to take up too much more of your time because I know you've got to get back, but it's been so wonderful having you here. I know there's going to be heaps and heaps more questions, but I will post your Instagram because I know you've got such a wealth of information on there. I got lost for like a couple of hours when I was just looking through it, learning so many more different things. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. And hopefully at some point in the future, you can maybe come back and do a part 2, because I'm sure there will be lots of people wanting to get you back to answer the rest of the questions.
Yeah, of course I can. But thanks for having me. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the week and weekend.
Thank you so much, Seb. It's been amazing. Thank you guys for joining us live. And if you're just catching up, please do pop any questions that you do have in the chat box, and we can scour Seb's Instagram to find the answers for you. So thanks for joining us live, and we'll catch up soon.